Hello everybody, my name is Blue, and today we are doing our final build on the Bear Trail, which is a bit, well, it's a bit of, it's an area, let's say, in Punapuu Ridge. And for this final bit of the Bear Trail, we are adding the Himalayan brown bears. Yeah, I know it's quite an unpopular pick. I do know that it has gotten quite a bad rep, this species in particular, throughout the lifespan of this game. And I think the main reason for this is because the Himalayan brown bear is just a very unusual pick to have in the game, since it's not really popular in zoos. It's also just, I think people kind of wish they had another brown bear species instead, like a European brown bear or some other brown. There's a lot of brown subspecies, by the way. There's a lot of subspecies of brown bear, grizzly bear being one of them, or a zodiac bear. Is it zodiac bear? No, not zodiac bear. Kodiak bear. I don't know why I said zodiac bear. No, but yeah, the Kodiak bear, which is referred to sometimes as the biggest bear species, the grizzly bear, the European brown bear, and then this is the Himalayan brown bear, which is quite an unpopular pick. But the other reason is because a lot of people feel like this model doesn't really represent the species very well. It feels too much like just a grizzly bear. It doesn't really look like a Himalayan brown bear, although since it is a base game animal, it's quite forgivable. A lot of the base game animals don't have the greatest texture per se. But yeah, the Himalayan brown bear definitely is not a popular animal in this game. But despite that, I felt like it did deserve a little enclosure in our zoo, and for this enclosure I'm building, as you can see, a Tibetan temple themed shelter, which in the previous episode I built the kind of skeleton of this enclosure, but now we're detailing it, turning it and converting it into this very beautiful looking Tibetan temple. It's still a shelter, it's still in a zoo, so it's not an actual temple, it's just a zoo shelter that has been decorated to look like a temple, a Tibetan style temple, since it is very common and famous in the Himalayas. The actual brown bear is... I don't know a lot about these brown bears actually, since, as I said, it is quite an uncommon animal in zoos. Obviously they do live in a very arid, in a very rough climate. I'm losing my words here, I'm using words that don't exist. I also do apologize for my voice still, since I'm still ill. Yeah, apologies for that. But yeah, they live in very harsh... I don't know how I got to the word arid. That's very funny. So they live in very harsh climates, very rough, very cold, and therefore they do have a very thick pelt. This is the opposite of the sun bear, since in the previous episode we talked about how they have a very thin pelt. These have a very, very thick pelt, and most brown bear species do. They all have a thick pelt. They all live in colder climates, especially the Kodiak bear as well. They live up in the Arctic. These Himalayan brown bears, they live in conditions that is quite hard for us to imagine, since the Himalayas is a very difficult environment. Actually, mountains in general are very harsh and very difficult for even people just to get there. The mountains are very undiscovered. I'm not sure if the fact is correct that we know more about the seas and the oceans than we do about mountains. But I do definitely know that mountains are a very unknown place on Earth. It's surprising, since it is right on our Earth. It's right there. It's on land, but it's just really hard to explore and to get to. It's and the life that actually, well, animals that manage to live there, but also plants, it's quite impressive in my opinion. It's really cool to see them able to survive in these conditions. But in the meantime, actually, this enclosure has quite a different design from the last two, where there is a way bigger moat. As you can see, a very deep moat, since it is a bigger bear. You definitely don't want these to get out. But also, I added the really big pool. Most bears enjoy a swim. They all enjoy a little splash in the water. The Himalayan brown bear probably less than others, since they do live in the Himalayas. There's probably not really that much water there in the mountains compared to species like the grizzly bear and the polar bear specifically, especially the polar bear. But I did give them a pool, since that was quite a nice inspiration I got from which zoo it was. But they had this cool kind of pool that was elevated from the kind of moat around it, which is similar to what I've got here. And I tried to work with different layers in this enclosure. So there's also this elevated bit above the water where they can go on top of as well. So yeah, I tried to get a bit of layers in, maybe kind of also to emulate this mountainous environment that these bears live in. Since, as I said, they do live in the Himalayas, so yeah, it's quite uneven relief, you could say the least. But yeah, and I tried to make a very naturalistic looking rock face using the faux rocks going all the way around the cliff face, and then the pool I used the faux rocks as well to block it off, not make it look like just an actual pool, but more like a naturalistic border, but still have it look, somewhat synthetic. And then this kind of rock feature on top, I will put probably a like a little feature that they can go to, maybe like one of those, what's it called, like it's one of the enrichment items that they like to use. Probably put one on top of there, or like a climbing structure or something like that. And then for the surrounding around the path, I actually did use some faux rocks as well to kind of make it look more naturalistic. Since in the previous two builds I just used the default terrain, since I just covered it in plants, but since this is way deeper, I added some rock there as well to make it blend in a bit more. I actually don't give an indoor bit, like I don't decorate the inside since you don't see it, so I didn't really bother. So yeah, that doesn't really matter. And then for the environment, it's also quite different, since, as I said, they live in a very different climate. So the actual plants that I use, I still use the same native plants, but I use it very sparsely. I use a couple of trees and a couple of bushes, but I am very conservative when it comes to the plants in this exhibit in particular. Then for this fence, I actually reused the fence that I used in the sun bear habitat. No, not sun bear, sorry, the sloth bear habitat from the first episode of this bear trail. And then I recycled them and used them here in this habitat as well. And then, just as in the sloth bear habitat, I tried to give these different focal points, different viewpoints where you could look at these beautiful, well, maybe not beautiful since it is quite a controversial looking animal in this game, but interesting looking bear species. But for the rest, I think it's mostly just plant work that I do. We will do a walkthrough at the end of this episode, but for now, I will let you enjoy the rest of the speed builds, and not annoy you with my nasal, sick sounding voice. So I guess enjoy the rest of the speed build, and I'll see you at the end of this episode. Bye-bye. Alright, so here we are at the Himalayan brown bear enclosure, the final enclosure of the bear trail. So as you can see, I added this nice signage as well. It's a, well, it's actually just the default bear sign. I think it's supposed to be the grizzly bear, but it could work equally as well for the Himalayan brown bear as well, since they're both brown bears. You don't really tell the difference with this silhouette. And I also added a nice sign to indicate the brown bear that's actually climbing right now, it seems. Wow, I didn't know they actually could use the climbing structure. But there's also a baby, so very fun, very cute to see. And look at that big boy right there, just walking past, showing off its huge body as it goes inside of its shelter as well. Just like in the previous episode, you cannot view the indoors of the shelter, so they do have some privacy. There's actually a staff entrance over right there as well, which there is a do not enter sign on this fence. And well, you can view them kind of from here as well, a bit of an elevated view. But if we move over to the other side, we might see a better view of the entire enclosure, that is, where you can also see them swim if they actually decide to swim, which they actually do. I have seen them swim in here before. And they can also go down here as well. There's a big moat. But yeah, I'm still ill, as I mentioned in this episode, so I do apologize for my voice. But there's also a sign here as well, which I copied over from the sun bear, and I just changed it over a bit. But yeah, some supposed information about these bear species. Oh well, it's actually a subspecies of brown bear. Although I did just call it brown bear here on the sign, so I guess in this case it is species. But yeah, so this is basically the complete habitat. There's not much more to it. This is the end of the bear trail, but next episode we will go into the Mongolian desert, the Gobi desert, where we'll be building an enclosure for the Saiga, so definitely stay tuned, and I'll see you then in the next episode. Bye.